Actually, yeah, I mean, you're right. Many BAs, they have the same doubt whether they should start from CCBA first and then jump to CBAP. What a typical day of a business analyst look like?
So when I started my BA journey, like back in India, it was very different from how it is actually over here.
So, how does it differ from working as a consultant and working as an in-house BA, Vishal?
So initially, whichever project you undertake, the domain knowledge is most important.
Could you give an example of any project where you had to adapt the domain quickly and you had to adapt a new environment as well, Vishal?
When I came to Australia, like it was everything was new. Financial services was a new domain that I ventured into. So there are several aspects that are very new, especially the work structure, how the culture is, and financial services coming from healthcare to financial services itself. Like it was a huge leap.
Hello and welcome to FuturePath Global, a knowledge series by Techcanvass where we explore about success stories from professionals across the industries. I'm Rajesh Yadav, your host. So in today's episode, we are taking you behind the scenes of a fascinating role of business analysis consultant in Australia. So many BAs they want to transition into a consulting role. So in this episode, we are going to explore what it takes to get into this profile. So to help us uncover this, we have a very special guest, Mr. Vishal Verupanda, who has worked on multiple projects in Australia as a BA consultant. So welcome to FuturePath Global, Vishal. It's pleasure to have you here. Thanks for joining. So can you tell us about your experience and background and how you started your career as a BA in Australia?
Rajesh, thank you for having me today. I started my BA journey in Australia 3 years back. It was with the same company that I'm currently working with. Back then, I was a junior BA, though I had offshore experience, but it wasn't like much. So I started as a junior BA, and after 1.5 years, like I wanted to take responsibility of understanding the end-to-end BA scope, because at the start, like what BA does is mostly on requirement gathering and analysis. Apart from that, there is other areas as part of the BA work that they can actually leverage. I just wanted to understand that whole picture of like what BA does and how we can leverage the skills and knowledge. So I looked for other certifications in BA related to business analysis, and I got to understand like there are CCBA, CBAP certification that would be actually helpful to uplift my current understanding of business analysis landscape. So I thought initially that CCBA would be actually be helpful for me because it's less stressful, and in my day-to-day work as well, like I can just come home and then prepare for 1 hour per day and then get that certification, and then also the knowledge as well will be mostly be in line with what I'm currently doing as part of my work. And since like both CCBA and CBAP also require prior experience, so I thought like CCBA would be far better because like it requires less level of understanding and practical knowledge. CBAP is a tough kind of a journey, I thought. But after having a chat with the Techcanvass team, they assured me that it would be a really beneficial if I can go with the CBAP rather than the CCBA. Then, based on their insights and inputs, like I decided I would actually go with the CBAP certification, and I started in the month of Feb. My preparation, and in the Jan, like I started enrollment, and from February I started the classes, like virtual classes with the Techcanvass team. So, yeah, that's my journey in Australia, how it all started.
All right, wonderful journey, Vishal. Actually, yeah, I mean, you're right. Many BAs, they have the same doubt whether they should start from CCBA first and then jump to CBAP. But we always recommend if you have the eligibility, you have the required years of experience, then you should always go for CBAP. Because what happens, let's say you start from CCBA first, all right, and then once you complete the CCBA, the moment when you achieve your CCBA certification, you'll start feeling like, I should have gone for CBAP certification directly. So it's always better if you have the eligibility. So we always recommend to go for the CBAP certification, Vishal. Perfect. All right. So now, what a typical day of a business analyst look like?
So when I started my BA journey, like back in India, it was very different from how it is actually over here. In India, like when I had my journey started, like it was more on just understanding the requirements and trying to document the requirements, whatever we get from the stakeholders. So like we don't get to analyze the requirements and try to suggest like what differences, like or do the gap analysis in the current state and the future state. It wasn't like part of my job. But after coming here, like we had to also do the gap analysis. We had to understand the current state, infrastructure, all the factors that are important to understand the current state, do the process analysis, process mapping and all that. So it was a bit different when I actually started doing all that, and especially process mapping. To do that, like we need to have a proper gap analysis, and even if we miss one factor, that would actually change the whole scenario of how we envision the whole project, especially the future state, and what do we actually get the solution, how the solution will be designed in the future state. So to understand that, like there are many strategies that come into play for the business analyst to actually rely on. To actually apply those strategies, we would actually be able to understand like what is the current state and how do we map the process between all the, connect the dots between everything. So to do all that, right, like there are just different fields in business analysis, not just requirement gathering and analysis. It's also change management. It's also requirements analysis and design. It's also doing the gap analysis and also doing the solution evaluation, and what do we actually do if post solution evaluation as well. So it's an end-to-end cycle related to the SDLC, software development life cycle. I was given a project. It can be at different phases of the project that I am actually allocated to. Sometimes I get into the mid of the project, then it's all about solution design and evaluation. But if I actually start from the start of the project, and if I'm allocated to that phase of the project, it's mostly high-level BRD, like BRD design. So like I had to take the requirements from different stakeholders, analyze them, and document a high-level business requirement document so that can be actually sent to the higher-level stakeholders to get their approval for the upcoming scope of the project. So we get funding based on that high-level BRD. So it's a very major step for any business analyst. And then after we get the funding, we get into the detailed BRD design and all that. So different projects I have actually had, like within the Westpac, within the company that I'm currently in. And so like now I think doing the third project. But when I was in the first project, like it was at the end, or it was mainly on the support that I actually supported my lead BA with many activities that we had to do. But now I'm actually part of doing many other activities, which I actually started post my CBAP certification. It's a very different altogether journey that I'm currently, or the responsibilities that I've got. And it's actually very nice to be associated with the end-to-end process of the BA, because it's not just requirement gathering and analysis, it's also documentation, it's also stakeholder communication and management, it's also managing the solution evaluation. If there is any problem with the solution, how do we track? It's also risk management, how do we manage the risk and all that. So like end to end, it was a very good journey, especially with the knowledge that I gathered from CBAP certification. I used many strategies in the CBAP book in my day-to-day tasks as well. There are many strategies that come into place, like which strategy to be used at which point of time or to which task is actually being elaborated in the CBAP book as well. So
yeah, perfect. Of course, I mean, working as a BA is not just gathering the requirement. There are multiple tasks you have to perform as a BA, right? So Vishal, now you've worked with multiple clients, right? So how does it differ from working as a consultant and working as an in-house BA, Vishal?
It's all about that varied knowledge that you acquire, right, from the domain point of view. So initially, whichever project you undertake, the domain knowledge is most important. And there are new stakeholders, so you need to understand which stakeholders are positive, negative, challenging, and all that. So you do the analysis in the start. So it's more like, I think more importance goes to the domain knowledge, acquiring the domain knowledge. Like initially, when I started my BA journey, I was into healthcare, US healthcare. So it was a new domain that I ventured into. And after that, like I ventured into financial services. Now I'm currently into financial services domain. So we get to understand the stakeholders, we get to connect with them, we get to connect the dots between all the things that are going in the arena of that financial services, and try to understand the future scope of that arena as well. Where are the challenges? Where are the opportunities? We delve into them as much as we can and try to leverage any future opportunities, like especially AI and ML that's going on. So we get to stay on the top of the domain that we currently work on. So I think that's the challenging part at the start. But then once you actually get to understand all these, I think it will be a very smooth journey because for the BA, like the main stakeholders we work with are PM and whoever is a sponsor and other stakeholders who actually manage on the higher level, and then BA actually connect all these people or bridge all these people together so that they work collaboratively and whatever the outcome is. So like BA helps to actually kind of manage that outcome as well. So
I mean, domain, they play a very crucial role in BA's role, right? Because domain background is very, very important because BAs, they keep working on different projects, right? So every time you have to work in a new domain. So domain knowledge is very, very important. So could you give an example of any project where you had to adapt the domain quickly and you had to adapt the new environment as well, Vishal?
when I came to Australia, like it was everything was new. Financial services was a new domain that I ventured into. So there are several aspects that are very new, especially the work structure, how the culture is, and financial services coming from healthcare to financial services itself. Like it was a huge leap, and also the responsibilities were a bit more than what I was initially doing. So that leap will definitely be helpful in the longer run. But I think in the short run, I mean, it will be a bit challenging in the start. Especially the challenge would be to actually not just understand the subject, but also be able to apply that knowledge right away. So like you won't be getting like much of a time to actually understand and then apply. It's all about like, because for a BA, like the domain knowledge is more important, right? I mean, especially when they need to understand the project scope. So they need to understand like what is the domain and then how it plays out in terms of the project outcome. So definitely, I mean, in the start, like to understand that level of domain knowledge is more crucial, and also to be able to understand how the scope of the project is more aligned to what they are trying to envision in the future scope of outcome of the project would be. So I think connecting that two together, I think that's more crucial and challenging in the first. But after we get to understand that, I think it would be really helpful for a BA, given that the project actually takes you across with more information or more domain knowledge that is more required. And then along the path, I mean, it would be more easy once you get that ease.
So Vishal, in consulting, I mean, every client has a different expectations, right? So what soft skills are more critical as a BA consultant?
So as a BA consultant, I mean, normally like we try to have good communication skills in the start. Like for any BA, like that would be the core skills that would be actually helpful in terms of communicating to different level of stakeholders, and also like when there is any stakeholder challenges as well, that we can actually leverage that skill to be able to understand like what is more required at that time. And also apart from the communication skills, also strategical thinking is more required because for a BA, like they need to use more strategies that are required to be able to apply in their core job. So as part of the consulting experience as well, I mean, we have to not just understand the domain knowledge, but also being able to empathize with the end client. Because when we understand what the problem is or what the opportunity is, we can actually try to solve it better rather than just having a textbook kind of a understanding of the problem statement, but trying to understand from the shoes of the stakeholder would be actually be more helpful. And for that, like that level of empathy is more required, especially to be able to cater to what their unmet need. Definitely, it would be a really beneficial kind of a skill to be able to actually understand from their point of view, understand the problem or the opportunity from their point of view, rather than we trying to force our thoughts or our perspective onto the problem.
All right. So now, how do you approach these situations like, wherein you have a very limited time in adapting a new business or new system, Vishal?
Nowadays, all the projects are very agile, right? So like they want quick output, quick wins, and everything. So I think there's nothing wrong in that. It's just the clarity and it's just the way we actually take the project forward. If there is a good team does the work in trying to connect all the dots, trying to connect with all the stakeholders, and then be able to apply that agile methodology, trying to track and trying to learn from quickly, having an iterative approach. I think that challenges actually won't be challenges anymore. Definitely in the start of a given project, when they actually get from waterfall into hybrid into agile, that hybrid period would be actually more challenging in terms of applying both the good and both pros and the cons from the waterfall and the agile. So definitely that would be a challenging period when they had to use both of these and have to deal with a quick outcome of the project. But apart from that, I think more challenge would be with the stakeholders, management of the stakeholders, and trying to get through with what we wanted to actually get that done. So like one of the instance where was testing part, right? Like especially when there is a solution level testing that is supposed to happen quickly, and then we try to understand where there is a problem from that solution. So like we have to get the testing, we have to review the testing outcome, and then we have to implement that correction in that solution. So like that part actually normally takes a lot of time, but with the right level of resourcing and right level of skills, we have actually got that completed in the very short time, and then that actually has enabled us to be on track. And there are other parts of the challenges as well as part of getting the things move quickly. Sometimes stakeholder conflicts arise, and then we have to manage those conflicts as well. In terms of stakeholder conflict management, I mean, it's a very different ball game. The more experience you get, the more strategies that you can actually apply, then you can actually get your stakeholders to accept that risk and move forward. Stakeholders have different perspective towards a different risk, right? I mean, one stakeholder would feel that it's a very positive outcome that they can foresee, but the same risk or same problem or the same outcome, a different stakeholder would be actually be more concerned or worried about the outcome. So same thing, but different perspectives, right? So like the BA needs to actually be able to understand that channelize a common level of ground in terms of what is a final outcome and how that final outcome can give a positive change for the whole organization, and by that, like how the stakeholders can be benefited from that. So to understand all those things, right? I mean, this BA also need to be able to put those shoes of empathizing with the stakeholders' perspective, trying to understand where the problem is actually. If there are any bottlenecks, then the BA needs to be able to understand, document it, and whoever is accountable or responsible need to be involved as part of that and trying to solve it at the earliest rather than having it as a least priority and then putting it to the backlog and tracking it later. So everything counts, right, for the BA. I mean, it's not just the skills also, it's just how they adapt to more difficult terrains and how they try to adapt into more agile way of working rather than waterfall way of working. So they need to iteratively work on different tasks and then check like which is working and then implement or execute with the help of other stakeholders. So for BA consultant, I mean, it's more about how well they gel with the team structure and how well they use their team for the larger outcome, for the better outcome, and how well they actually use the resources that are currently there, and also be able to understand what the project manager is actually trying to get out of that phase. So I think by that means, I mean, it's all about adapting quickly and moving with the flow of the journey with the SDLC.
So, how important is communication and stakeholder management in your day-to-day consulting role?
That's what I mean. What we do on day-to-day basis, like apply that those skills, trying to understand the stakeholders better, try to solve their problems, try to understand where they come from, what they want to achieve, and then how we align to the goals and outcomes of the project. So we align, we have a common goal, and then we start looking at that common goal rather than me having a different goal as a BA or they having a different goal as a stakeholder, whether it's a sponsor, whether it's a project manager or a tester or anyone else. I mean, we all have a common goal of depending on what the project is and what the scope of the project and what the KPIs of the project are. And we just go with that common goal and that understanding. And stakeholder management is like a key skill for any BA, right? I mean, we have like different level of conflicts, as I was saying. So we need to actually understand what the conflict is from the ground level and be able to apply any strategies that we can actually apply uh, from the BA lens, and then try to solve that problem at the earliest and be able to get out of that. So yeah.
Vishal. So every consultant needs to gain the client's trust in every new project. So whenever you approach a new project, so how you establish your this trust and your credibility with the new client, Vishal?
That's a good question. I mean, so like most important, it's about the trust that we have to gain from the client. So the trust is not like built, not achieved in day one or day two. It's an ongoing process. It's like not like okay, this is the day that we have actually gained the trust after the project is completed and we have got the outcome of the project. It's not about that. It's not linked to the project at all. It's just linked to different individuals and different levels of understanding of who the person is rather than what the work says. So that people level skills is more important in terms of building that trust and actually gradually trying to connect together in terms of able to understand like what the person is actually trying to say, what their perspective is, because different people have different perspectives, and then trying to cater to their perspective and be able to understand from their lens, not just from personal perspective and whatever like we have gathered from the past, rather than having that level of understanding versus like what we actually understand from their lens and be able to align with that level of understanding. It's more important for any BA consultant.
So now I have a follow-up questions. So what are the most small and powerful things as a consultant you can do to put a very strong impression to your client?
So the most important part, as I've said, like for any consultant, it's mostly to do with how he applies the knowledge that he has acquired from the past. And a certification like CBAP would actually have a lot of knowledge. He or she may not be able to apply it right away once he gets out of the certification or once he passes the certification. So it happens like on different levels of responsibilities that he was actually given. So it won't just happen like right away. So after 2-3 years, like going back to the subjective knowledge and then studying that level of information, whether it is a strategy or whether it is a different level of knowledge that has been acquired as part of the BA level study, applying that level of knowledge even after 2-3 years of studying and passing the CBAP would be actually keen to actually be able to develop more into the arena and be able to use those skills in the whole consulting landscape. So the difference, would be working as a pure BA versus pure, BA consulting would be to understand that and to be more collaborative. So I think as a BA, it would be more, he or she would be more attached to the one single project or one single domain. But as a consultant, they get to work on different projects and then external stakeholders as well who are outside the company as well. So to cater to their needs and goals, I think that would be actually more important than thinking just as a pure BA. No matter what, like I think as a BA, the skills or the knowledge would be the same. It's about how you use it and where you use it, the place and the level of knowledge that's used, and moreover the experience that you gain gradually. I think that more important. Knowledge is not something that's gained and then that's stopped from the day two. You gradually try to understand each part and then you connect the dots between what you have learned from the CBAP and what you're actually doing on the ground. So I think it's more over like every day you learn from something from at the end of the day. So I think it's more like a gradual path rather than it's a day outcome or this is the day that I have actually stopped learning, something like that. So,
what opportunities and confidence you got with this certification?
With the certification, the first thing is like I had to again study, so which is a bit different from the work that I normally do. Working on the day-to-day basis versus studying also is a bit different because before that I was only either studying or either working. It wasn't both. So I had to come from the office and then I have to set aside some time, be disciplined towards that schedule and be able to study the concepts. Some of the concepts are very new because like I haven't had like that level of exposure in my work as well. So it was very new. So understanding those level of concepts as well was very challenging at first. But the more important was the whole preparation and being disciplined with that preparation.
All right, Vishal. So, for someone who is aspiring to move into consulting roles, so which certification would you recommend for them to go for, Vishal?
For a consultant, the most important skill would be problem solving, and that's not a skill that's gained on day one or day two. It's a gradual skill that gets developed in their work. But one of the most important skills that any consultant would be actually be using is strategical design, design thinking, I would say. So I think even CBAP, having a BA skill set, thinking as putting a hat of a business analyst and analyzing the business, trying to understand the current scope, trying to understand the future scope, and having to do the gap analysis, thinking about KPIs, and also doing all the strategical design level of thinking, connecting the dots between all the requirements, able to understand from the stakeholder point of view, able to align with that common goal, common outcome of that project, and to be able to communicate well, to be able to understand or articulate what the problem statement is, and to have that level of exposure. I think the most important would be to have that initial level of hat, because a consultant is not very generic to just BA. It's more on different levels, because there is a strategy consultant, there is management consultant, business consultant, there is financial consultant, there is a healthcare consultant. So different. It depends on what domain knowledge you come with, but on the common level of ground that you see, the more skills that you use are very common between BA and a consultant. So more importantly, the problem solving type of methodology or that mindset is more important. Trying to go deep into what the problem actually is, rather than just documenting it on the high level and then trying to connect the dots between high level of scope versus the solution level of requirements. Trying to have a clear pathway of how the business goal or business outcome is linked with how the solution is designed. Trying to comply with that design level of understanding is what takes a person from just a junior level of BA into a senior level of consultant, BA consultant. So it's more gradual development, I would say, rather than it's just one certification that would actually be beneficial into becoming a consultant. It's more of understanding where that knowledge can be actually used versus just getting the certification ready and then you'll be job ready. It's not about that. I mean, it's about how do we use that knowledge in the day-to-day work, and also after 3-4 years, how do we get back to that level of knowledge and then apply that into a new level of work that you are actually tasked or being responsible for. So, but yeah, definitely a certification is all about validation, that you have acquired something, you have learned something new, and how that new level of knowledge can be used is second step. But on the first step, when you actually get to be disciplined enough to actually take that certification, be able to allocate time, be disciplined towards your schedule, and also be able to understand how that aligns with your day-to-day level of work, connect the dots between what you actually do and then what the subjective knowledge actually says. So that level of discipline is more important in terms of passing the certification at the first step. And that discipline will definitely be helpful in your work as well, in terms of having to understand how those knowledge or newly acquired knowledge can be built and be gradually developed into your responsibilities that you are allocated with. So it's a journey, I would say, rather than some kind of, okay, you have passed the certification, that's your accomplishment. I wouldn't say that. It's a kind of a journey that a certification passes that certification who is able to actually get that level of knowledge forward. And CBAP is a very prestigious certification, I would say, because it's a competency-based certification. It's not like a book knowledge kind of a certification. So like you read the book and then the question is like just framed from the book. It wasn't like that. That was one thing. I mean, that took me off, like, because when I actually started preparing for the certification, I got very low scores, and that actually took my confidence down. I wasn't expecting that how hard like the questions would be framed. It's about like how competent you are to understand that textbook knowledge to what we actually do on the floor. So that level of knowledge and that level of skill set would actually be more helpful on the long run. And for a BA, I mean, definitely a BA with CBAP level of knowledge would be more actually skilled and more ready to undertake that level of task, to be accountable for the task, and not just being responsible for delivering that level of task. So I think that level of understanding, knowledge, skills, and being able to use that knowledge in the day-to-day work would be actually be more beneficial in the long run. So yeah.
Right. I mean, of course, CBAP gives you that level of understanding, knowledge, and skills, right? Because when you appear the certification exam also, so there you get a lot of case study and scenario-based questions. So to crack the certification, you need to have that sort of a level of knowledge and understanding. Yeah, of course, you're right. Actually, CBAP is the relevant certification for the aspirants who have the required eligibility to go for the certification, Vishal. Great. All right. So, in your view, like how certifications help you in staying relevant in now this constantly changing environment of consulting role?
Definitely, I mean, they help a lot, especially uh, to gather work experience versus to gather the knowledge. I think work experience is very dependent on different projects, different level of companies that we work with, different level of responsibilities that we are given, and a lot of factors, right? I mean, we don't a person with the same level of experience would be working on a different challenge versus and another challenge or a smaller challenge or something the project scope would be actually be more lesser. So I think the CBAP certification or the knowledge that you gain from CBAP is actually helpful in terms of bridging that gap between a person who was kept into a different level of project versus who was given a different responsibility in the other project. So and also like the basic knowledge that you acquire as well, the strategies that you study in the CBAP. I think that will be definitely be useful no matter when that person is able to undertake that level of responsibility. So I think even after 5-6 years, definitely they can use that strategy to get a better outcome, to actually get a quicker outcome than a person who is not using any strategies or CBAP knowledge. So business analysis would be actually be more helpful if they actually know end-to-end knowledge that you gather from the CBAP. So that's what I was saying, right? There are not just requirement gathering BA would do. BA would also be able to analyze the solution after the solution is designed and implemented. So they analyze the outcome of the solution and try to delve deeper into the problem, if there is any, and then try to solve that late in the later stages. So it's an end-to-end kind of a work that's undertaken by any BA. So I think that level of end-to-end knowledge, if you need to acquire in a short level of time, I'm not saying use that knowledge, but at least acquire from a knowledge perspective, then I think a certification would be actually be beneficial in terms of giving you that level of scope, giving you that level of comfort in terms of your future level of challenges or future level of responsibilities that you are allocated with. And when you can actually use that knowledge right away, versus you going back to your senior stakeholders, asking them what needs to be done, versus you being aware of like, okay, this is what I need to do. This is the thing that's more beneficial for me to actually get that work done quicker. I think that's one of the things that will be more beneficial, because like I have read in the CBAP, like how do we have a requirements architecture. I wasn't aware of like, okay, that thing exists in the outside world, because I haven't heard it from anyone like previously. How do we connect all the requirements and make a requirement architecture, not just solution architecture, but requirement architecture, and able to understand the solution or the design of the requirements from that level of high level understanding versus like a detailed level of connecting all the dots, tracing back, forward level of traceability, backward traceability, able to understand from that lens where we actually know the subject versus applying the subject versus like just going with the flow of the project. I think that level of knowledge can be actually be used on the ground more better if you actually know the subject rather than just able to understand like from your work so yeah.
Of course, I mean, this has been very insightful conversation, Vishal. So, but before we wrap up, what one piece of advice would you give to a BAs who are aspiring to get into a consulting role, Vishal?
So any new skills that we need to acquire, right? Like not just AI, not just cyber security, not just business analyst, whichever domain they are in, whichever arena that they wanted to leverage. I think the most important part is the subject knowledge. Definitely, from the CBAP lens, I would say it's the more business analyst skills that you acquire, the knowledge that you acquire, and then how do we use it on the day-to-day work is what takes you forward. So once you actually start your preparation from the day one, it starts with testing your integrity, testing your level of patience with how much you can actually survive that period in terms of being able to improve yourself or improve your understanding of that knowledge. Because when I was actually getting the low scores, it actually took me a lot down, and then I had to rethink twice whether I need to go forward with this certification or not. So at that time, I mean, if I would have taken a step back, it would be very different for me. But yeah, definitely, I mean, that level of discipline, that level of understanding, improving mainly, I would say. Improvement actually is more gradual, but it depends on how much we can actually put those efforts and be disciplined enough to improve on what we actually are getting. So people will only see the final outcome, but they won't be able to see the journey that we have actually gone through with passing that certification. So I think when you actually start on day one, most importantly, don't give up in the middle. It's always important to carry that forward, carry that understanding of yourself, do SWOT analysis of where you are weak at, and try to understand where your improvement areas can be, and then try to leverage your inner skills to actually get your understanding forward and be able to gain what you actually started, complete what you have started, and then it's not just a stop signal like you see once you pass the certification. Actually, the real journey starts from there. In terms of definitely you'll be getting a better opportunities and better responsibilities. People will be who see that you have actually passed CBAP certification will be actually putting into more challenging roles and responsibilities, and will be more accountable to what you're actually doing. So that level of work requires a lot more discipline. I think that journey is more fruitful when you start on day one, and then when you don't give up. So that's more important. It's not giving up. So yeah.
So finally, what is the most rewarding part of being a business analyst, a business consultant for you, Vishal?
The most important part is ability to connect with many stakeholders, trying to understand what the problem is and solving the problem. So the best part of my day-to-day work is trying to solve a given problem at the end of the day, at the end of the project. And once we implement that change, and then once we get to know that, okay, the change is successful, that gives more pleasure than being able to do a routine level of task or be on a gradual journey. So I think that level of work actually boosts my confidence as well when we actually succeed in those levels. So that's one of the things that as a consultant I'm more looking forward to do as day-to-day work.
Thank you so much, Vishal. I mean, your advice would surely, I mean, help and enlighten many BAs who are aspiring to get into a consulting role, Vishal. Thank you once again.
Thank you so much.
So to our audience, thanks for joining us on FuturePath Global. Stay tuned for more conversations with the professionals who are shaping the world of business analysis and product management. Until next time, stay curious, stay focused, and be future ready. Thank you.